my friends, I hope you're all keeping very, very well out there. Welcome back to a new tutorial. As you can see, part 1. A lovely little snow scene. Beautiful warm colours, little reflections, some nice warm snow, focusing on warm lights and warm shadows, and painting snow which is not necessarily white. I know a lot of us think of snow as being white, but it's not. It's reflecting the colours around it. So this will be a nice little tutorial to show you how to paint snow, which is not white, but a nice warm sunsetty kind of a snow scene. The sun going down in between the trees, a little lake with reflections, beautiful, beautiful scene. So let's have a bit of fun with this. Grab your brushes if you want to follow me along. Do subscribe to all these videos, and again, a huge thank you to my patrons. I also want to just congratulate Fernand over there on Patreon. He's one of my patrons. He won the Christmas gift. I did a giveaway for Patreon. I gave away a beautiful gift of a full set of paints, brushes, lots of bits and pieces in there for Christmas. So congratulations, Fernand, if you're watching. If you haven't received notification of the prize already, do contact me. Anyway, my friends, let's try this. I think you'll like it. This is quite nice. Much better than I had hoped for. So join me. Let's paint. Okay, my friends, let's have some fun with this. Here is my canvas. I did a very quick sketch. I don't know if you can make it out. I just sketched in the riverbank, the horizon line, and a little riverbank on the side. There's a reference photograph. Now, isn't that beautiful? Looks quite complicated, lots of colour. A little bit tricky with the mixing, but I'm going to explain to you as I go in detail about colour theory and mixing colours, that kind of thing, all right? The colours I have: titanium white, Naples yellow, cadmium red, cadmium yellow pale, magenta, burnt umber, lamp black, burnt sienna, phaylo blue. Ignore this. That was for a different painting, but I changed my mind at the last minute. This is cerulean blue. I'm not going to use that, okay? So there are colours. I am going to take a flat brush, a large flat brush. I have some thinners, which is linseed oil and some turpentine. Say 50-50. Let's start with the lovely sky. Okay, I'm going to start at the very top. Now, what I'm trying to do when I'm doing a painting like this, try to ignore all the trees. Try to take the trees out of the painting completely. Just focus on the colour of the sky. Okay? I'm seeing a very light pinky kind of a shade up there. So I'm going to dampen my brush. Let's take some magenta. Lots of white. Now the white will thicken this up very thick, so keep adding little touches of turpentine. What you want, and what I tend to do, is go for a very nice, thin, creamy consistency. Okay? Now into that I'm going to take the tiniest touch of phthalo blue. Tiny little touch. See how far that goes? It goes very far. So the tiniest touch, and you only need to mix up a little bit of this. Let's try this. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to put that very thin mix up here on the sky. Now that, if you find this a little bit too thin and watery, just take more yellow and more paint, okay? Or sorry, more white and more paint. So a little bit more white, some more magenta, and another little touch of phthalo blue. That will thicken it up slightly. And you kind of get used to the texture and the thickness of your paint after a while. It will come naturally to you. It depends on what you prefer as well. Now you probably can't even see that. It's so light. I'm going to take a touch of blue again and a touch of magenta. And I just want to darken it ever so slightly, just up in this corner. You can see how thin my paint is. It's really thin. And soften it across. We can use the blender brush later to soften all of this. I'm going to do just that much and then go into yellows. So now we're going into these yellows. I just dried my brush very quickly. Pick up some cadmium yellow and a little magenta. What you could even do is pick up cadmium yellow and a touch of cadmium red. And then into that take a hint of Naples yellow. Now let me have a look. Okay, now I know that seems a little bit strong, doesn't it? What I might do is take some white. Okay, now we end up with a nice bright whitey yellowy colour. Take a touch of magenta. The magenta, just that little touch of pink in the yellow, it just really gives you the shade that you want. There. Now that's a nice soft shade, isn't it? I'm going to go with that. I'm going to pop that in all the way around, and I'm going to soften it into that pinky shade we have. Now it's quite dry on my brush. I'm really kind of scraping this along on the canvas. Now as it goes up into the pink, I want to start adding a touch more magenta as I'm going along. So a little bit more magenta, you can see that? Slightly pinkier shade. And go around that yellow. And that pink will soften into our lighter pink much nicer. Look at that now, that's lovely. Nice soft shades. Just flick it left and right until you get it nice and soft. I'm just going very randomly around my canvas and I'm going to soften it left to right all the way up. And that's a nice sky, isn't it? Nice and simple, nice and soft. It'll make a nice background. As we come down, I want to make this a nice rich colour. Now, if you looked past through the trees, see that kind of orangey shade we have going on in the trees? It's a lovely kind of an orangey shade. I'm going to try and mix that. I want to use some magenta, Naples yellow. And you can, if you like, just add a touch of cadmium yellow to this as well. Just a touch. That'll give us this kind of, see that sort of pinkyish, warm pinkyish shade. I'm going to soften that. I'm pretending this is the background trees now just showing through. Okay? You see that background kind of a colour we have up there showing through on it, it's the actual trees. But I'm going to soften this into the background now. Save me doing it later. Come right down. You can come, I'm avoiding this area, I'm leaving that to last, okay? Now, magenta, cadmium yellow. And let's try a touch of cadmium red. There, and I'm just going to dab as if these are the trees, the foliage on the trees. There's actually no foliage on the trees. They're all little twigs. But from a distance, it just looks like a mass of colour. Do you see what I mean? It looks just like it's a mass of colour. Because if you were to sit here and paint every tiny little twig in the distance, we could be sitting here for hours and hours. And I'm not going to do that. So I'm just bringing this colour right down. I'm going to soften it across into this yellow. And bring it over here. The next thing I'm going to do is just get this bright yellowy white in the centre of the canvas. I'm going to take some cadmium yellow with some white. I hardly mixed it, okay? It's very, very bright. Then some cadmium yellow and a touch of burnt sienna. The cadmium yellow and the burnt sienna, it gives you this very rich, warm shade, okay? You could even add a touch of magenta as well. So we're going warm, kind of browny pinks, that kind of shade, okay? I'm going to pop that in as the distance trees there off in the distance, all right? And I'm going to soften it up. When I'm softening colours, I just swish my brush around, like this. Just swish it around in little circles. Right, I'll clean my brush very quickly. And then go into some white. And let's just fill this area in the middle. Now you could do this first and then do your trees around this afterwards. That's perfectly fine as well. So now we have this lovely kind of a bright glow. But that's not bright enough yet. We need to brighten that a bit more, so I'm going to go with a smaller flat brush. Again, take a little touch of cadmium yellow and plenty of white. And let's go in here. Let's take another touch of cadmium yellow. Let's put a nice rich, bright yellow first. And then, after cleaning your brush, take some white and just pop a little dot of white in the centre. That just really makes it pop right in the middle, doesn't it? Just dab it around, soften it around until it disappears outwards. Isn't that quite nice? Now, I quite like that. The next thing I want to do now is just, again, go in underneath that with some nice warm colour. So I'm going to go back to the mix I made earlier. I'm going to take a little touch of burnt sienna, cadmium yellow, and a touch of magenta. And with this beautiful warm colour, look, I'm going to just come in underneath that. And I'm not copying the photograph exactly, I'm just kind of using it as a reference really for colours. That's all it is, it's colours. I'm not trying to copy the trees exactly how they are and all the rest of it, because you could be here forever. I just want this lovely kind of fuzzy, warm, yellowy, browny shade, very warm, rich yellow, a bit of brown in it, down underneath those, like that. Okay, now I'm cleaning my brush again. This is the important part here. I'm cleaning my brush again, just get some of that yellow off, that kind of browny colour off your brush. I'm going to go into a mauve. First, I'm going to take some magenta with a hint of burnt sienna. So I'm going pinkyish first. Soften that in there. And you could even bring that up here as well. Look, dab, 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 dab up. Soften it up. Do the same over here. So we're going from this rich browny yellow into a pinkyish brown. And then from there out, I'm going to make a mauvey shade. So then I'm going into magenta with a hint of phaylo blue. But more kind of on the pinky side. You see that? Because a pink will always soften into a yellowy shade much nicer. If I try to put a bluey mauve into this, it's going to go mucky. So I always go with a kind of a pinky shade first. Alright? Let's just soften that away, like that. And once your pinky shade is in, you can then add your little mauvey blue over that. So if I go phaylo blue with magenta and make it a bit more on the blue side, so it's like a bluey purple, like a grapey kind of a colour, then you can see it doesn't go muddy. It'll mix much easier into that pink. Bring it across ever so slightly. Just at the bottom really, kind of coming up at an angle, and soften it where they meet. Very gently dab, 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 dab. So now you can see we have this beautiful warm kind of yellows going out into a pinky shade and into a mauvey colour at the edges. That's what I want. Next job for me is to take a soft blender brush. Alright, nice soft brush. And soften, starting from the white in the middle, very gently swinging it around. And just soften everything back slightly into the distance, especially this line here. I'm just going with the edge of my brush across that line, look. Just soften it out ever so gently and go into your mauve, make it all nice and soft. So you can see now, the brush strokes we put on are not the final strokes, they're not the final finish. I always soften these back slightly. It gives a lovely kind of a distance and depth in the painting. So now we have a lovely background, I think. Lovely soft background. The next job for me is trees. You see these lovely warm trees we have in the centre of our painting. I want to get some of those in. And I just need to find the proper brush for this. Let me see. I have a number of brushes I can use. I go for a kind of a medium, small, pointy brush. And that's basically burnt sienna. That colour of those trees over there now is burnt sienna, touch of magenta. I'm going to try that and just see how it looks. If it's too dark, we can lighten it. If it's too light, we can darken it. But remember, with oils, anything you put onto this is going to mix into that colour slightly. Let me show you. So let's just go like this and go up into that colour and leave it disappear. Pop a couple of little branches coming off of it, because a lot of these are going to almost be lost later on. They're going to be kind of lost between all the snow and everything else. We have another one kind of coming across it here. Again, it sort of comes up and disappears, doesn't it? I'm just going to allow this to disappear up into the painting. So they're crisscrossing across each other. I'm going to add a touch of cadmium yellow into this, just a touch. We have another couple that come out like that. I'm just going to pop a few random sort of suggestions of the trees here and there. And you see the way sometimes I just kind of tend to flick my brush. That gives a nice little suggestion of very distant trees. It almost gives the illusion of detail without actual detail, without having to sit and paint detail. It just gives you that lovely illusion that there's lots of trees going on. I'm just giving this a couple of flicks up. And that's really all you have to do. You see how lovely and warm they feel. What I'm going to do is take some cadmium yellow and right in the middle pop some cadmium yellow, because that gives the illusion of the sunlight crossing through the trees. And if you take a touch of burnt umber then and put that down towards the bottom, you can see it just gives you that effect of the sun kind of catching the tree right in the middle, and it gives you that kind of light spot. That's the kind of effect I'm after, really. Now from here on, it's just a case of popping in some branches and all that kind of stuff. There's lots and lots of branches. So just pop a few in, right up, don't be shy. Just give your brush a little flick out here and there. But I'm not, again, as I said at the beginning, I'm not going to go into too much detail with all of this. I just want to try and keep this simple, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is take some of this deep mauvey purpley colour and pop a couple of slightly darker ones in using the mauve. Same over here. Just pop a few in. They do go right up, don't they, these trees? And already that's kind of coming to life, isn't it? Now I am going to pop a few really dark ones in. They're almost black, okay? So I'm going to go with burnt umber, magenta, and some black. And there is a couple of, just around the front there's a few that look really black, kind of a shade. They're almost black to look at. So for example, in here, there's one that comes up. It looks really dark, doesn't it? Goes right up and out of the painting. And just paint it in very loosely and just make it slightly thicker towards the end. That will later disappear into the snow. Another very important thing about painting things like this is you need to tend to work in layers. What I mean by that, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that in just a moment. I tend to paint each layer coming forward. I'll show you what I mean just in a moment. Let me just get a couple of small branches onto this. let them disappear again, disappear up. So I have this first kind of layer painted in, okay? I'm then going to finish the snow and all of that kind of stuff on this layer first. So I'll take a fan brush. For me, a fan brush is probably the easiest way of creating snow and all that kind of stuff on trees. For me, it is. I'm going to take my fan brush, dampen it ever so slightly. I'll take some magenta, a little bit of white, a little touch of cadmium red perhaps. Let me just try for a moment. Let me have a look. I'm going to paint a little bit of snow in around these trees with this colour. Okay, now it might need to be a little bit darker. I'll try a touch of burnt sienna in that. It's like a warm pinky orange colour. I'm just going to paint in the snow on the trees in this colour, because you can see off in the distance everything is kind of pinky, isn't it? The snow, the foliage, the branches, everything is sort of pinky-ish. So I'm just going to paint this in using this brush, just very quickly, look, just like that. Grab your fan brush and go right over some of your trees. Don't be shy. Already we have a nice little scene developing, don't we? Now once you have just a very rough texture, look, very rough texture all over the top of that. Then I'm going to start mixing a slightly mauvey shade. So a little magenta, a touch of phaylo blue. Just make sure they're well mixed on your brush now, yeah? Again, I'm going more pink this time. Then a touch of burnt sienna. I'm then going to put that shade here and there as it's coming forward. This is going to be the darker shade coming forward. And I'm also going to add a little bit of that now just around some of these. Create a little bit of shadow on some of this foliage. And particularly down here. So you can see the way I have covered a lot of the tree trunks as well with this texture. You see we have a big bushy area down here. I'm just going to fill that in with this colour. And that's kind of pretty much my second layer, my first layer finished. So I'm now going to kind of add a second layer to this. What I'm going to do is take a bigger round brush. I'm going to go very dark now. You see these trees here? They're very dark, aren't they? Let's get some black. Nice black, and let's go with a little touch of magenta as well. But it's primarily black. It's a black colour. And let's paint in this big one here. Just grab a spot on your canvas and go for it. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. I know sometimes you'll be worried you're going to mess up your painting, but you know what? Let's just go for it. It's only paint. If we make a mess of it, we can fix it. I'll get more black now, but pop a lot more black on that. It needs to be really, really black in silhouette. Then we have another one that comes out here, doesn't it? It crosses over. We actually have a couple of really kind of thick ones that come out up here. So let's just get those in. And try a bit of burnt umber again and some black. I'm just going for a really rich dark colour. We have another big one that comes out here and turns and meets up with this one. The only tricky part of this is the fact that the colours merge together in the background, don't they? So it's just a case of keep putting on darker and darker colour to get what you want, to get the result you want. Sometimes even pure black. Pure black, look, just pop pure black. You could even pop a little phaylo blue in there. That gives you a rich dark colour as well in the shadows. And just a few then, kind of, you can see there's a couple showing through here and there, isn't there? A couple of these ones in at the back. Out of the painting. Do just try to simplify this. What I tend to do when I'm painting like this is I try to block out all of the detail, all these little twigs and branches, all these thousands and thousands of twigs and branches. I block them out and I just focus on the thick black parts of the tree. Does that make sense? That's all I try to focus on. I'm going to bring another one across up here. I don't know if it's in the photograph or not, but I'm just kind of putting one in anyway. And once I've that done, then I'll just add a couple of branches. A couple of small branches here and there. Let's just use black, plenty of turpentine. And let's put a couple of nice dark branches coming out here and there. The purpose of all of these little chunks of branches is really just to give the illusion of detail. Again, it's just the illusion. I want to create the illusion that there's lots of stuff going on, lots of twigs and branches and all that kind of stuff. In reality, it's only just a few flicks of a brush. I'm not going to sit here for 3 hours painting twigs and branches. So I just generally, I pop in 1 or 2. Because remember, a lot of this is going to be covered with snow, foliage later on. So I'm not really worried about adding loads and loads of branches into it. Maybe 1 across here and there. I'm going to now start putting snow on this side. I'll just pop some snow over on that side. Now we do have snow on the tree trunk, you see that? I'm going to show you how I create that kind of snow. Just using a palette knife. So let's grab some magenta and lots of white. And I might take a hint of blue as well in this. I'm going for a very light mauve, okay? Magenta, blue and a little white. Now, on the edge of my brush, I'm going to just go along on the right hand side and just drag it in. Go to the edge and drag it and just even dab, 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 dab. That's all you have to do. Let's go on this one here. Dab, dab, dab. And it only needs to be a little touch here and there. Not too much. Just a little bit. Once I have that on, I'm then going to take my fan brush. Just to make sure it's clean. I'm going to just give a little bit of a curve on these. Just very gently. Drag them around, look. Now you could even just go straight. But I find a little flick, a little curve like this makes all the difference. It gives you the illusion of the curve of that tree trunk. And there we go. And that's just some nice little bits of snow on the tree. Easy, isn't it? I get this big one in here because that's out of the way of the rest of the painting, so we can get that one in as well. I'm going to put this big black one in up here on the left hand side. Let's take some black and let's even try some magenta. And let's just put this in. Boom. Don't even think about it, don't worry about it. Just grab your brush and pop it in. Alright, we'll do the very same thing again with our palette knives. Grab some of this lovely colour and let's go up on this side. And you will notice it's difficult to get this to stick. Just keep adding bits of paint onto this, that's all. All right, just persevere, keep going. You will get there. Just allow thick clumps of paint to come off of your knife and onto that tree trunk. And in the very same way with your fan brush, just drag little bits of it across here and there, look. And you can make this much thicker if you like and add more paint. It's up to you completely. So yes, we're going quite well. I might add a couple of nice branches coming down off of that tree. I think that might look quite nice, wouldn't it? Let's take a bit of black and let's just bring a couple and let them fall down. I think just one or two is all we need. Make them very random. The trick with painting trees and branches, I think, is very random. Keep wiggling your brush. I would very rarely have a straight line in a branch, okay? That's what I would say. They're always going to be wiggly, just like that. Now I can bring one off of the left tree as well. You can just go from here and boom, just off like that. After that, I'll go to a small detailed brush, very small one, and just add a few tiny little branches and twigs, just to give that little bit more solid detail to them. A couple of flicks with your brush, that's all it is, all right? Very simple, just a couple of little flicks. Don't go too crazy with all of this. I'll then clean my brush and just grab, let's say, some whitey pink. So let's go down and take where we mixed with our palette knives, take some of that whitey pink and pop some of that on top of those branches. And that gives you a nice little effect, doesn't it, of the tree, the snow settling on the branches as well. It's a simple effect, but I think it works quite nice. You can even go into some plain white as well, if you like, and pop a little bit of plain white on some of those branches. All of these little things will make a difference. You may not notice them when you're painting them, but they actually do make a huge difference. Okay, now I think I'll leave it at that. I'm going to call that part 1 finished, my friends. Part 1 finished. Let me just loosen this clamp now ever so slightly and see if I can turn the camera just a little bit so you can see myself. Now, there we go. We are done. Part 1 is finished. That went quite well. I'm looking forward to carrying on with this. Stay tuned for part 2. Remember, keep it simple. When you're painting lots of trees like that in clumps, when you look at a photograph, you'll see hundreds of little twigs and branches all over the place. Remember, what I would say to you is focus on the thicker ones. Just paint in the thicker ones and pop just a few little flicks here and there off of those branches. Don't try to focus, I wouldn't try to focus on painting every single little tiny branch and twig, because it's laborious and you become frustrated if you try to get every tiny little detail in. So I much rather just paint a couple of tree trunks coming up and a few branches coming off of them and just add a bit of foliage. That just makes life much easier, and it gives you, I think, a nicer effect as well. It's a more impressionistic effect. So I hope you've learned something. I'll be right back with part 2. Do not go anywhere.